Hello everyone, this is your friend Naruto What If Hub 2.0 and we are back in new fanfic. What if Naruto the Ultimate is the friendly neighborhood Nine Tails? Part 3. The first thing Naruto heard was humming. It certainly wasn't the loudest noise in Konoha. That went to some nocturnal old-timer who snored loud enough to wake the dead. Naruto hated that mental analogy in hindsight, but he was too groggy to truly care. But he focused on the humming, because it was pleasant and the voice familiar. He opened one eye and glanced down to see Sakura humming a tune. With her were Hinata, Shikamaru, Kiba, and Neji. All of them looked to be having a picnic near his head, enjoying onigiri and some drinks while Kiba told some story about Akamaru getting stuck in a drawer. Said hound was the first to notice Naruto's gaze upon them. The second, of course, was Neji. He's awake, he said bluntly. This caused the rest of the young ninjas to look up in surprise, many exclaiming in shock. Naruto, how long have you been awake and just watching us? Kiba asked in surprise, while Hinata and Sakura helped pat Shikamaru on the back to keep him from choking on his rice roll. Naruto grunted, probably alerting the entire village he was awake again. If not, his answer would do the trick. Just now. Got it? Sakura asked as Shikamaru took a deep breath and gave a thumbs up. Naruto, are you determined to kill me by surprising me too often? Shikamaru called up as he caught his breath. Naruto hummed. How long has it been? Over a full day, almost 2. You really must have been tired, Sakura noted with a concerned frown. Having a tiny moon dropped on you will do that, Naruto remarked with a yawn. That got some strange looks and comments, but most took it as an expression or joke. Well, if I didn't wake up, that thing definitely hasn't shown up anywhere. Shikamaru was telling us all about your battles, Hinata said with a smile. It sounds like you've gotten very good at using your new powers. Sakura smiled in support of Hinata while Naruto just smiled in thanks to the praise. So, you're making tsunamis made of fire, and you can just stab your damn tails into the ground to make water. The hell? Kiba asked with a grin. What's next? You can control the weather. You didn't tell them about the hole, did you? Naruto asked with knowing amusement. The hole, Sakura repeated. Look, that thing is probably sticking around no matter how much the terrain core repairs the area, Shikamaru defended, rubbing his head. Suffice to say, Naruto created at least one new landmark in Fire Country. Yeah, I probably shouldn't use that one too often until I figure out how to fill it back up myself, Naruto mused, scratching his head. That's about what the Hokage and the others request. Yes, Kakashi said as he made his presence known, crouching next to the younger ninjas. Damn it. Why is everyone sneaking up on us today? We're just trying to eat and talk. Kiba said in annoyance. Doesn't your clan have enhanced senses and everything? Shikamaru reminded blandly. Enhancing senses doesn't help the senseless, Shika, Naruto reported with a grin. That's not what that means and you know it. Sakura called up, mock berating the Biju. Naruto chuckled shortly and so did Kakashi. Glad to see we're all having a good time, Kakashi said as he looked up. How are you feeling, Naruto? After everything that happened lately? Wonderful, Naruto answered, rolling shoulders as he started to fully awake. I can finally relax and not worry about the bony bastard showing up at any time. That's wonderful to hear, Hinata said with a smile. We were all worried when you passed out on the mountain. Naruto sighed deep. I don't think my body needs to sleep, but my head still hasn't learned that. What? You, not learning something? Sakura asked playfully. No. Naruto looked at the pinkett. I don't like that look, Kiba muttered, Akamaru barking in agreement. Naruto inhaled. Kakashi and Neji made sure to channel chakra to keep them rooted to the floor. Naruto blew a breath at the group. Ah, shit, Kiba said, pulling Akamaru off his head before the dog got thrown away. Neji calmly waited for it to end while Hinata closed one eye. Shikamaru nearly fell backward in annoyance. But Sakura yelped as her kipao nearly went flying up before she quickly pushed it down with her hand. Naruto, you ass! She yelled over the wind. Naruto, seeing what happened, abruptly ended his prank. Sorry. Did not think that through, Naruto admitted in apology, having only intended to knock the girl on her butt at most. Despite this, he chuckled. Sakura huffed with a blush and crossed arms, but couldn't stop smiling after a moment as she saw Naruto relax and enjoy the peace of the moment. So, if you're done breathing all over our food, Kiba said with a smirk, are you going to tell us about this awesome fight you had? Oh sure, as soon as Granny and the others decide what parts they want me to filter out, Naruto answered, pausing before glaring out at the village. It's a damn ninja village. Everyone knows we leave shit out. I knew that. I don't even want to know who he's talking to, Shikamaru said with a sigh. And yes, Konohamaru, if Iruka says yes, you brats can all come up here and I will give your whole class story time about how I beat the bone monster. Have fun with that, Iruka. Naruto called out deviously. Poor Iruka is going to be swarmed by those kids, Sakura said with a headshake. So, Kakashi-sensei, are we finally getting the story behind this creature? Yeah, Kakashi-sensei, are they getting the story? Naruto asked with a chuckle. I'll leave telling you about the battle to my fluffy student here, Kakashi assured with an eye smile before he looked at the others. The short story was that this creature was exactly what it sounded like, a Gashadokuro. We call it a Hakuju, Naruto added in idly. Who the heck is, we? Kiba muttered out loud. A giant skeleton demon in legends, said to be born from many deaths in a single instance, normally battles or massacres, Neji recalled with a frown. So, those are not just myths. Apparently not. We're unclear on how it was created, but it seems to have been an unintended side effect of the curse mark on some of Orochimaru's subordinates. Namely, the ones that tried to help Sasuke escape. Kakashi paused with a head tilted, those that died, at any rate. Naruto made no comment or reaction to that version of the story. It wasn't the truth, but it was close enough, especially when they didn't really know the truth. But it was probably a good idea to not imply that more Hakuju might spawn up in the future, as they hopefully would not. You meant those twin freaks and the others we fought? Kiba remembered with gritted teeth, Akamaru growling. Didn't you say the one you fought was like a spider or something, Neji? Yes. Though, by the sounds of it, the main factor would have been Lee's opponent, who also possessed the ability to grow and manipulate his own bones, Neji remarked. The others all shivered at the reminder. That is still one of those bloodlines that are so weird to think about, Sakura said, unnerved by the prospect. After you've seen your own skeleton hand a few times, it stops being way, and I just realized how up that sounds, Naruto said with wide eyes. We are going to talk about that later, Sakura said, sharing a look with Hinata, one of concern tinged with horror. The Hyuga heiress nodded repeatedly at Sakura. Kakashi cleared his throat to continue. We don't believe Orochimaru did this intentionally or knows how to recreate it, but Lord Jiraiya will be looking into it regardless. He definitely didn't know about the thing, he would have been gloating about it, Naruto muttered with a snort. Wait, Orochimaru was there? Shikamaru asked with a furrowed brow. Shika, you're smart, think about how many people are trying to watch me at any time, Naruto reminded flatly. Ah, Shikamaru said in understanding. What does that mean? Kiba asked with a furrowed brow. Obviously people attempt to spy on Naruto, many from other countries, Neji pointed out, as if it was obvious. Hinata looked up in concern, seeing Naruto looking almost resigned and bored with the topic. He went as far to look over his shoulder, away from the village, and silently raised an arm to flip someone off. I'm going to assume that is one now, Sakura mused, getting a silent nod from Naruto. Hinata knew all of that on a factual level, but it wasn't something she had thought about too much. That Naruto actively and constantly had people trying to spy on him, to gather information on him, and all looking at him as a potential threat. Because of course, who wouldn't? He was the Kyuubi, the second, the Nadaime Kyuubi, but the Kyuubi nonetheless. That kind of power attracted attention, good and bad, regardless of how it was used. Monsters like Orochimaru and others no doubt looked to gain a power akin to what Naruto had. But then there were simply other people, from foreign ninja villages or countries, all simply worrying for their own safety in knowing that Fire Country had such a powerful. What was Naruto, in the eyes of the village leadership, and the daimyo? He could not be safely called a shinobi by any means. He was an ally, surely. But how many saw him as some kind of tool or pet to be handled and controlled? She had heard the words before, random strangers or her own clan members saying how the Hokage needed to find a way to keep Naruto on a leash, or equally insulting phrases. She hadn't thought too deeply about any of them at the time, because she was used to others talking about Naruto like that. But before he became a Biju, it had been like an unruly or overexcited child. Now it was something worse, she only now came to realize. Naruto started sniffing loudly. Something is on fire, he commented, looking around for a bit before deadpanning. Buddy, you have at least one Anbu watching you. If you were in trouble for having that, you'd already know it. I don't want to know, Shikamaru said with a sigh. Hinata decided now was a good time to speak up. Do you know how long you'll be staying, Naruto? She asked curiously. At least a few days. I'll probably head back north and say goodbye to everyone at the daimyo's place, but really, I just want Pervy Sage and Granny to give the all clear. That we're all pretty sure this thing isn't a problem anymore before I head down south, Naruto rambled idly. Say goodbye to everyone at the daimyo's place, Neji repeated in amusement. He says that so casually, Sakura said with an amused sigh. Speaking of which, the daimyo does send his gratitude, but I'm sure he'll be more than happy to give them in person, Kakashi mused. Just try not to intimidate them too hard. Sensei, I was sleeping on the guy's front lawn for a while. Trust me, they're used to me by now. I think they were making jokes about renaming that mountain I laid on all the time to something like Kitsune's Rest, or Kitsune Perch, Naruto countered in amusement. Great. Now he'll have a bridge and a mountain named after him, Sakura said with a snort of amusement. He has a what named after him? Kiba asked in surprise. We had a very interesting C-rank mission that turned into an A-rank mission, Kakashi explained simply. Interesting. That certainly is a word, Sensei, Sakura said neutrally. Sakura, you have no room to talk, Naruto said bluntly. You were the only one of the three of us to not get pincushioned with ice needles. Shikamaru furrowed his brow. Enemy with an ice manipulation bloodline. That is the short answer, Naruto agreed flatly. Go on, Sensei, regale them about the time you got stuck in a wet ball. Quote. I believe we need context for that, Neji said with a raised eyebrow. Kakashi sighed dramatically. Very well. I shall start by telling you all of the time Naruto almost bled out while making a dramatic blood oath and thought he was going to die. Naruto chuckled sheepishly at the reminder, but made no effort to deny it. Fair play, Sensei. Meanwhile, well, Naruto is doing well by the sounds of it, Tsunade said as she poured a drink for herself and her old teammate. He certainly deserved a rest after everything, Jiraiya said as he took the drink. He paused for a moment. Naruto, I'm sure those giant ears of yours are listening, but try not to react to anything. Or play it off if you have to. Pervy Sage, what do you think I do all day here? Naruto retorted purposefully. He's not wrong, Tsunade admitted. But what are you concerned about? I finally had time to check the body of the man Naruto and Kakashi fought near Rain, Jiraiya mused with a scowl. I knew him. Tsunade furrowed her brow. There were some children I helped back in Rain, during the war. I taught them some things, to help them survive, he explained idly. And the leader of the Akatsuki is one of them? Tsunade asked with a scowl. I'm not sure. The report you read is about the same as what Kakashi told me, a man that appeared to have 6 bodies. If this is the Yahiko I know, I can't be sure if he's the leader, a victim of his, or something else. For all I know, this is some strange variant of Orochimaru's jutsu to take over another's body, but allowing one to puppet others, Jiraiya mused with a troubled look. Naruto is convinced the Akatsuki leader, whoever it is, isn't dead yet. And considering the damage I saw from his fight with Naruto, to think someone that powerful was lurking under the radar, in rain, Tsunade mused. Did those kids have any powers, a bloodline or something that might explain this? Jiraiya frowned. Maybe. One had unusual eyes. And Kakashi said these bodies had similar eyes, but they didn't belong to Yahiko. And Yahiko's corpse doesn't have them anymore, so I'm a little lost there. Tsunade frowned. We both know how little that can mean. Transferring eyes is tricky but not impossible. Jiraiya nodded. I'm going to give him a quiet burial after you're done examining him. Try and keep that to yourself, you know Danzo might try something. Of course, Tsunade said in understanding. Did you discover anything from the site of the Hokage? Besides the new tourist spot Naruto created? Not much. The physical part of the seal was pretty well destroyed. What little I found was fairly archaic. Archaic? That seal seemed pretty powerful to me, Tsunade retorted. I don't doubt it. I don't mean it was low quality or outdated, I mean the symbols, design, and writing used in them were ancient. Predating most ninja clans, if I had to guess, Jiraiya said with a frown. Someone with some old roots either stepped out of the shadows, or was robbed. And we have no leads on who, Tsunade summarized. Do you think the Akatsuki is uninvolved? It's hard to say. We're trained to suspect coincidence, but the fight with this Pain character might have just been them trying to see if they could defeat Naruto. The two sat in silence for now, contemplating everything. The life of a ninja was rarely calm for too long. The longer one lived, the more true that became. All of this, and the daimyo is considering aiding Rain in its civil war, Tsunade said with a sigh. I stand by that, Naruto called out. Was that aimed at us? Tsunade asked curiously. Probably, Jiraiya murmured with an uncertain frown. Tsunade had heard of this situation before Naruto awoke, that Jiraiya had concerns about the daimyo's apparent trust in Naruto. Was the man intimidated? Was he just trying to keep on Naruto's good side? She wasn't sure, but she wasn't as concerned about it as Jiraiya. If Naruto and the daimyo got along, all the better. She had feared the worst outcome, the daimyo trying to order Naruto around like any other subject or worse, a pet and Naruto responding in a typical Naruto-ish way that would have made everything harder for everyone involved. Instead, Naruto and the Lord of Fire Country had formed some kind of respectful understanding. How it came about was less important than it existed. End of chapter. Well, this is the first of Naruto's distressing chapters. Fun talks with friends, the typical, I hear everything, humor. Hinata also had a little introspection on Naruto's situation, and Jiraiya and Tsunade discuss some of the things that happened. Also, yeah, Jiraiya didn't get a good look at the Pain body before he sealed it. It was bitten in half, they were in a hurry, the Rinnegan doesn't show on the corpses, and so forth. Happy Thanksgiving. Hope you all had a Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year's. And so there I am. I finally found the bony bastard's grave, and I immediately just rammed the guy into the ground, Naruto narrated to a bunch of academy students. He was sitting on his hunches, taking down to them as they sat on top of the Hokage monument, giving it his utmost attention. Shut up. Don't make it weird. He yelled to someone in the village. Anyway, I am attacking him, but no matter what happens he just keeps regrowing his bones. What did you do, boss? Konohamaru asked excitedly at the front of the class. I kept fighting him, Naruto answered, chuckling at their unimpressed faces. Remember, this guy is as big as me. And his weak spot is supposed to be a grave nearby. I figured if we tore the place up enough, we'd either destroy the grave or it'd become obvious where it was. Oh, the kid said in understanding. I'll admit that I'm not the smartest tool in the scroll, Naruto said with a chuckle. But sometimes, you just have to grit your teeth and endure through to win. Naruto's right, Iruka agreed with a smile as his students looked at him. You should always use your head and look for any weakness or advantage you can, but that does you no good if you don't have the physical or mental tolerance to make use of it. And you also need to realize when something is off about the situation. Naruto cut back in again, turning slightly annoyed at the memories. Like me, when I look upon miles of wreck land and realize, there is no way we didn't roll over and trash that grave at some point. How much did you and the Haka thing wreck the place, boss? Miyogi asked curiously. You could fit Konoha in it at that point, Naruto said with a shrug. So, I decided to put the Hokage in timeout. And by timeout, I mean I made a giant hole open up under him. So big, he couldn't even try to jump out of. Oh, the students said in surprise. Elsewhere, Sakura smiled as he overheard Naruto telling the story. While it was directed at the academy students, really the whole village could hear it. And while Naruto's storytelling wasn't the greatest by any stretch, it was far from boring. He can make a hole in the earth, pull up water, and use fire, Ino remarked absently. If he was smaller, he could make an instant hot spring. You do realize you'd probably have to share it with him to make it work, right? Sakura pointed out logically. There are some missions where I would make that trade, Ino said with a sigh. Still, he seems to be in a good mood. Naruto's laughter cut them off for a moment. What? No, Konohamaru, how would that even? PFFFT, I can't even say it with a straight face. Sakura giggled. He definitely is, she said fondly as she watched the giant fox prattle on. Ino hummed. So, you want to talk about how protective you are of Naruto now? Do you want my fist down your throat? Sakura countered the offer with a fake smile. Come on, Sakura, you're practically acting like. Ino started until Sakura quickly put a hand to Ino's mouth. Shut your mouth, Sakura muttered slowly, glaring at her. Or do you want to ruin his good mood? Ino blinked and softly pulled the hand away. Okay, sorry. I sometimes forget he can hear just about everything. Yeah, well, I don't, Sakura said pointedly before sighing. Anyway, changing the subject, you have a new mission yet? Yes, you both do, Naruto said, and they blinked as they realized he was looking at them specifically with mirth-filled eyes. Nothing, Konohamaru. I just heard something I had to comment on. We have a mission together. Ino muttered. I guess they're mixing up the teams now that we've all been to the Chunin exams and some of us got promoted. And some didn't have teammates for entirely other extreme reasons, but Sakura appreciated Ino not saying such out loud. Who do you think the third member in the Jonin is? Sakura asked out loud. Maybe Hinata and Kurenai. They do send out all kunoichi teams so a female Jonin can teach us some female-exclusive things, Ino remarked vaguely. Missions specifically involving sex were somewhat rare and optional in the current era. There was a point in the pre-village past, Ino and Sakura had grimly learned, where that was almost exclusively the kind of missions kunoichi got. Officially to keep the identity of a kunoichi secret, as more public missions or them obtaining fame would make such covert missions harder. But there was an understood assumption that it was also because, at the time, kunoichi had been seen as weaker than male ninjas. Still, with figures like Tsunade of the Sannin and other powerful women, this era of the ninja villages was far more egalitarian in that sense. But, the old wisdoms of those times were passed down, just in case they were needed. After all, when things went wrong and just fighting it out didn't work, a ninja had to consider every option if they wanted to accomplish their mission and survive. Maybe it's Shizune, Lady Tsunade's apprentice. Sakura suggested thoughtfully. I don't know much about her, now that I think about it. Yeah, is that pig her pet, or the Hokage's pet? Ino wondered. Do you really trust the old hag to be responsible outside medicine and Hokage work? Naruto retorted with a grin. Naruto, what the hell are you saying about me? Tsunade could be heard from the Hokage's tower. I said you used up all your luck having someone as nice as Shizune to cover your wrinkled ass. Naruto answered cheekily. There was a brief silence before Naruto's ears twitched. He blinked, right before Tsunade appeared on his head, slimming her foot down. Ow. Damn it. Granny. If I yelled and broke any windows, you'd be paying for them. Don't be such a baby. That was barely a finger flick to you, Suand retorted before vanishing. Naruto glared at the Hokage's tower. Your finger flicks level buildings. Iruka sighed at the exchange and the impressionable minds who had soaked it up like a sponge. Did you have to say that in front of the students? He asked, rubbing the bridge between his eyes. Dead silence greeted him. He looked up and realized that Naruto and his students were giving him looks. Naruto was deadpanned, and the children were confused. But, Iruka-sensei, he has to say everything in front of everyone, Konohamaru pointed out. Right, Iruka said with a head shake. I forgot that because I was focusing more on the fact that I know it's useless to ask you to just not say it at all and address the Hokage properly. Ha, you know me so well, Iruka-sensei. Naruto said with a grin. Anyway, I gotta get going. The class collectively groaned in disappointment. I know. But I'm going to head north and give an official goodbye to the daimyo and everyone. Then I'm heading down south to my beach, find someplace to lay down any way that I damn well want and may sleep for another entire day, Naruto said, grumbling to the end before waving to the village. See you around everyone. I hope my next visit is for less crazy reasons. With that, he turned around carefully and made his leave. Goodbye, boss. Enjoy the beach, Naruto. Have a good walk. Sakura smiled as she waved farewell to Naruto. There were certainly more people being polite or even nice towards Naruto now. She supposed fighting off a giant skeleton monster helped. You ever wonder how Naruto and his loud mouth managed to not cause an incident with the daimyo? Ino asked playfully. According to Kakashi-sensei, Naruto was supposedly the perfect guest. Polite, calm, everything, Sakura said skeptically. Naruto. The Naruto that just called Lady Tsunade, old hag, in front of everyone. Ino asked dubiously. Hey, I'm in the same boat as you. It doesn't sound like Naruto at all when sensei explained it, Sakura agreed. Protective of Naruto she might be, she knew he was the same tactless goofball in some ways. Even if he was just being on his best behavior, it sounded a bit much to me. Maybe we should have hitched a ride with Naruto to see it for ourselves, Ino jokingly suggested. Meanwhile, before he could head south, Naruto had to venture north one last time. He retracted his path from here the last few times he made this journey, mindful of any traveler passing through the area. He heard more than a few of them fall over, gasping in shock as they gazed up at him through the trees. He'd apologize, but he was sure that would freak a lot of them out even more. Lord Kyuubi, Lord Naruto, Lord Kitsune, Lord Biju. He heard dozens of tongues whispering various titles as he approached the daimyo's palace. Some were tinged with fear, others with gratitude, but none with hate. He'd take that. He took care when he tread closer to the grounds, feeling the respectful silence growing over the area as he came to a stop. Ah, Naruto, you've returned, the fire daimyo greeted welcomingly. I have heard tale of your victory. Lord Daimyo, I'm just glad I actually did win and he didn't show back up again, Naruto answered as he stared down at the leader of the nation. I plan to return to my beach soon, now that our bone monster is finally put to rest. I understand. On behalf of myself, my court, and all of Fire Country, I offer you my gratitude for your aid in eliminating this threat, the daimyo gave, tipping his head in gratitude. Naruto nodded back in return before glancing a bit higher. I came to say goodbye to you as well, Naho. The fire daimyo glanced up curiously, maybe even amused, knowing that his niece was a few floors up and being addressed by the Biju. Thank you for stopping the monster, Naruto. You were amazing. Really. Naho called out with a wide smile. I'll make sure no one ever forgets how you slew the grave beast. Naruto was pretty sure the giant hole he made at the battlefield would do that plenty, but he grinned widely to show he appreciated the sentiment. Lord Daimyo, I hope you'll be happy to have me off your front lawn from now on, Naruto remarked before being a bit daring as he looked to the rest of the palace. I know some of you are. Several servants, guards, officials, and other parts of the castle staff stayed very quiet at that and tried not to look nervous. A few managed to chuckle though. While Naruto hadn't been as talkative around the palace as he had been in Konoha, the castle occupants still took time to adjust to the little issues of having a Biju staying nearby. Like the little tremors from his movements, the sounds of his yawns or growl-like hums, and plenty more. Naruto chuckled as he felt their sheepishness. Still, it was nice to meet all of you. I'll see ya whenever I have reason to come this far north again. Farewell, Naruto, the daimyo said with a wave as the Biju turned to leave. Many others yelled their goodbyes, but none quite as loud as Naho. Goodbye, Naruto. If one looked upon the towering Biju, they would not be mistaken if they thought they saw a small smile on his face. Naruto began the journey south once more, straying only to return to the scene of his final battle with the Hokage. It was just as ruined as when he left it. A mass stretch of forests and land uprooted and torn asunder. If this had been a village or city, the devastation would have been truly horrific, Naruto was grimly aware of. But in the wake of destruction, life often started to creep back in. He could see animals among the dirt and logs, searching for food, hunting others, or even making homes in the devastated land. Like most animals, they didn't pay him much mind unless he was much closer or actively angry. It was something he learned both at the village and beach, that animals often knew when and where he was a hazard to be around and paid him only mild attention otherwise. There was even a stream running through the upturned land. He idly wondered if that had been there before or had the changes to the landscape diverted it. And finally, his eyes trailed to the hole he made to stop the Hokage, with the edge having glass from his Hellfire Tsunami and people. Naruto his head as he realized that yes, there were people at the edge of the massive drop, about a dozen or so. Ordinary people by the looks of it, those that had made their way here to see the scene of the battle, if they even knew of what happened here. They looked upon him in awe and no small amount of fear as his massive eyes found them. More than one fell backward in shock. They weren't ninjas or anything, and had no way to be prepared to be confronted by a Biju like him. At least, that's what his senses told him. Deciding it was best to leave lest he frighten them more, he merely gave a slow nod of greeting to the group before turning to continue his trek south. No more delays came, even as he passed by Konoha with only a wave of greeting. Naruto wasn't sure why, but the walk south felt slower than normal. He still remembered when this all started, and he had been rushing north on this path. He could still see the prints he made doing that, deeper and sharper in the front than his usual ones. That felt so long ago, longer than it actually was at any rate. No matter his love of Konoha, he felt a sense of relief as he saw the giant rock pillars that stood beside his beach. If nothing else, coming back here meant that he could relax and that things were fine for now. Maybe he will get a visit from Seiken soon. He could use that, honestly. But not right now. Right now, he needs to just relax by himself for a moment, and not be stressed about anything and everything, about having to watch his every move around people that got too close to him or watch what he said for many given reasons. That was the true joy of privacy, something that was hard to come by as a Biju. The beach hadn't changed much since he left, and that was strangely comforting in a way. His collection of shipwrecks was still here. The tide must have risen heavily during a storm or something though, because some of them had partially been washed out to sea again, sitting in the shallows. There was a whale carcass he never tossed back in the ocean, picked clean by various animals in his absence. He could go for a whale. It was as good a celebratory meal as he'd get at any rate. Alright, let's see if I still have my sea legs, Naruto joked as he began to walk towards the waters. He stopped as he saw a familiar figure poke out of the water, and it wasn't Seiken. Oh. Great. Naruto deadpanned as he saw his old foe, the giant octopus floating there, eyeing him. Can we put this off for today? I'd rather not do this today. The octopus raised up its mighty tentacles and revealed a whale. Naruto blinked as the cephalopod hurled the whale at him, the kitsune catching it in confusion. The octopus stared for a moment before vanishing back beneath the waves. Quote. Thank you. Did he miss me? Are we friends now? Frenemies? Naruto wondered before shaking his head. Human or Biju, he wasn't going to turn down a free meal. Ideally eating the whale raw, bit by bit, Naruto let his mind wander freely. A lot had happened with this Hokage thing. A lot of the places he visited trying to find the Hokage had given him weird feelings, like that temple where he had spoken to that monk guy. Then again, the Biju weren't the only demons that existed in the world. He was sure they had one or two nasty things sealed away in places like that. The golden goose from his nose had, somehow, turned into a whole damn phoenix. How the hell did that work? And what had even been the point of this Hokage thing? Was it being used to target him? Or was there something else going on? Oh, and he fought the leader of the Akatsuki. The guy that had tried to put Naruto into a mini-moon. What bullshit was that? He didn't pay attention in class, but he was pretty sure he'd remember people casting jutsu that did stuff like that. Still, the more practical issue there was that man had multiple bodies. And Naruto had no idea what to make of that. Could he replace a body once it was destroyed? Because each one had their own abilities. Were the gravity jutsus some kind of super powerful bloodline that was unique to that body, or could this pain still use them and just need a new body to replace it? He growled longingly to himself as his thoughts trailed off. He never thought ahead a lot before the Valley of the End, before he became this. But napping on the Hokage monument that first day had been the point where thinking ahead became a necessity. If he didn't, people got hurt. He licked his fangs as he tasted the blood and meat. He tore his mind from such dark thoughts. Here, the only thing that had to fear him was the occasional whale. Because the octopus sure as hell didn't fear him. End of chapter. Well, Naruto had some nice downtime at the village, said goodbye to the daimyo and everyone there, and is finally back on his beach, and the octopus and him might have some kind of tsundere-ish enemy friendship thing going on. Naruto is confused by that. Still, this was mainly just a relaxing chapter, everyone enjoying that the Hokage situation is dealt with. There are a few very specific things that didn't change with being a giant vulpine creature made of pure chakra. One of which was how annoying it could be to have some stubborn food stuck between his teeth. Yeah, that whalebone is stuck in there nice and good, the Chunin answered, being the unlucky one posted to keep an eye on Naruto's beach while Naruto was having this specific problem. Naruto was currently lying down on the beach with his mouth opened wide for the ninja to get a better look at it. I am not going in there, even if I thought I could get it loose. I wouldn't have asked you to, Naruto grunted in annoyance, sitting up to try and scratch it out. Damn, this is so weird. This is so different than having a normal mouth with human teeth. Have you tried flaring your chakra, like you do to clean your fur? He asked curiously. You don't think that wasn't the first thing I tried? Naruto asked in annoyance as he wiggled his fingers around. Wait, I think I got and it broke in half. Damn it. Well, at least you still have thumbs and fingers. He suggested helpfully. I mean, I don't think all the Biju do. Having met Saiken, Naruto agreed. I wonder why any of them do. I mean, foxes and raccoons don't have any. And I know Tsunade's slugs and Orochimaru's snakes can do jutsu without hand seals, so, what the hell? Your guess is as good as mine. I stopped questioning it after I saw you fighting an octopus the first time. How have you not killed that thing yet, by the way? Naruto glanced out to the sea with a glare. I ask myself that almost every day. Wait, I think I got it. With a squishy snap, Naruto pulled the piece of whalebone from his mouth and threw it on the beach. Out of curiosity, The Chunin ran over to it and examined the bloody piece of bone. Huh, I'm not a biologist or anything, but this bone looks pretty weak and brittle. I think you got a really old or really sick one. I thought it tasted strange, Naruto murmured to himself as he rubbed the sore tooth. Thank Kami I don't get food poisoning. I'm pretty sure that would be like some kind of acid jutsu. Just unpleasant for you to cast, the Chunin said, partially joking. Naruto decided he liked this watcher. Some of them kept to themselves entirely during the stay, and others got really annoying for one reason or another. But he liked ones like these, ones comfortable enough to talk with him. Naruto's ear twitched. Brace yourself. 3 of his tails struck out to bat away the giant octopus that had all but leapt out of the water to attack him. Naruto roughly threw his aquatic adversary back from whence it came. You ass. Can you at least wait for when I don't have company? Naruto yelled out in frustration. The octopus surfaced to give what Naruto assumed was a stink eye before swimming off. Well, the Chunin said, having leapt a short distance away at that sudden confrontation. That was rather hostile. Is it normally like that? No, usually he at least waits until I'm in the water, Naruto admitted in confusion. I think I stole a whale he wanted to eat. How many do you even eat? The Chunin asked curiously. Not as many as him. I only eat a couple a month as a treat. That bastard actually needs them for food. There's no way I'm moving in on his food supply that much, Naruto reasoned, scratching his head. Well, enough about him. You mind giving me the beach so I can practice some? Can do. I was about to roast up some food for myself, the Chunin said, heading off with a wave. Naruto rolled his shoulders some as he moved his tails through the sand, the grains clinging to his fur. I'm not going to do stuff like Gaara can, but I can definitely do something with sand at least, he said, snapping one tail like a whip and sending a blade of sand that struck the beach, making a small path in the sand. How am I better at using my tails to hurl wind, something you can't actually touch, but I have trouble with stuff like sand. Naruto decided not to question it more as he continued his training. While he was pretty sure it was impressive that he could use most elements, there was an issue. He could chiefly only use them for the technique that hurled a blade-like attack from his tails made of a given element. It was basically the same jutsu or trick, just wrapped with another element. More complicated stuff was, well, complicated. He placed 3 of his tail tips in the water, channeling chakra through them as he tried something a bit different. He pulled the tails out with the intent to have a long whip-like end of water attached to the tail. It worked, to a degree. But no matter how he swung around his tail, the whips just flopped around ineffectively, losing a lot of water with each attempt before all he had was a wet tail. Okay, let's think, Naruto said with a sigh. Infernal tsunami works because that is just me feeding the flames my chakra and sending it all in one direction. Canyon burial is really just me making a giant hole in an instant. He hummed in thought, trying to imagine what he could do with water. After all, he had an infernal tsunami jutsu. Then he cringed at the image of him accidentally creating an actual tsunami and possibly flooding some poor island village. Right, let's not do that, Naruto said to himself as he continued to think. Meanwhile, Sakura did not mind the idea of an all-girls mission in the slightest. She was mildly uncertain about their sensei. Wow, Foxy went this far, huh? Anko mused as they continued their travels. Sakura shared an awkward look with Hinata and Ino. They were given a mission to help map out all the paths Naruto had taken during his search for the Hokage, so the landscaping department could start repairing the damage. It helped that Naruto tried to retrace his steps as often as possible. It was technically a B-rank mission, but only due to the scale of it. I think this is the first path he made, Hinata said as she looked over the map, pointing to a spot on the map. To the village that Hokage attacked when it first appeared. Yeah, definitely, Sakura agreed as she stood on the edge of the paw print. I've seen what it looks like when Naruto walks through an area. This is different, because he was running. Oh, is that why it's deeper than the others? Ino remarked as she looked down. Despite how upturned this piece of the forest had become from Naruto's trek, plenty of animals were amongst the logs, some drinking from a pool of water near the center. You never think about the aftermath of battles with large summons and wide area jutsu until you go on missions like this, Anko said with a grin. Hey, Anko-sensei, I know you're not an infrastructure planner or anything, but I heard some talk about keeping the path Naruto made up to the daimyo's palace, Sakura remarked with a frown. But with that and the one to his beach, would that basically cut the country nearly in two? Yeah, that would wreak havoc on trade routes. It didn't affect a lot down south, but I doubt they'll keep one up here. They already have to make a lot of bridges on this path between Konoha and his beach, Anko mused out loud. You know a lot about the economy, Anko-sensei. Hinata asked curiously. Oh, not really. But I went undercover once and this merchant talked my ear off while trying to charm me. Poor guy thought I was actually impressed with him for knowing how to make a steal on onions, Anko explained with a chuckle. But enough about me. Hey, Pinky, you're the expert on Foxy. You know how far away that first village was. I'm not an expert on Naruto. Even Naruto isn't an expert on Naruto, Sakura refuted. You proved he has a 10th tail though, Anko remarked teasingly. Sakura blushed and glared at the purple-haired woman. We should reach the village by tomorrow morning, Hinata informed. Oh, you know where it is. Sakura isn't the only Foxy expert it seems, Ino remarked playfully. Hinata blushed as well. It's just that some of my clan were trying to find a link between where the Gashadokuro attacked and where Naruto hadn't looked yet, she explained away with a stammer of embarrassment. Right. You didn't stand over those maps hoping you could help dear Naruto somehow. Ino pressed. Hinata blushed just a tad more as she hid behind the map. I'm going to like you, Blondie, Anko decided with a smirk. You're both horrible, Sakura deadpanned. Hey, wait, Ino said with a frown. If the Hyuga clan, and I'm guessing Konoha in general, knew all the places Naruto went, why are we doing this mission? And I almost respected you, Anko said with a sigh. How much of the mission briefing did you space out on? I thought I heard all of it, what am I forgetting? Ino asked in annoyance. Anko shook her head at that. Well, that map only marks all the rough locations where we know Naruto traveled to, but not all of them. More importantly, it just shows the marks, not the paths he took. Everyone was more concerned about figuring out where the grave was, not all the paths Foxy took to where it wasn't. Ah, right, that makes sense, Ino admitted. Sakura looked up at the sky. We should get moving if we want to make good time. Pinky is right, and this'll be good practice for tree hopping with less ideal terrain, Anko said as she leapt up to treetops, right at the edge of where Naruto's path was. Hop to it, ladies. If we're not at that village before noon, I'm putting you through Might Guy style training. Quote. You don't think she means the green suits too, right? Sakura asked uncomfortably. Ino and Hinata silently agreed with that sentiment. Meanwhile, nephew, Naruto found that being hugged by a giant slug wasn't nearly as disgusting as someone might imagine. It was still very weird though, Saiken's 6 tails wrapping around Naruto, a couple of them patting him on the back. Good to see you too, Saiken, Naruto admitted with an honest smile. I've been waiting for you to come back. I wanted to congratulate you on beating your first Hokage. Saiken explained enthusiastically. Though, I heard a lot of other weird things happened. Yeah, they did. And I'll tell you all about them because I have a lot of questions, Naruto said before frowning. But I'll start with the important part. Someone was controlling the Hokage. Saiken nodded. I heard. They also put a barrier around the grave. That's not normal. Not at all. Saiken answered, shaking his head for emphasis. Wait, you heard? From who? Naruto asked curiously. Saiken stiffened before looking very sheepishly. I suppose I should tell you now. All the Biju can communicate with each other across a shared mental realm we all have. Naruto stared at him for a moment. I have several more questions now, Saiken. Saiken chuckled a bit. I thought you would. We've been trying to contact you through it, but we can't for some reason. Huh? Naruto said with a furrowed brow. So his apparent long-range telepathy wasn't, strictly speaking, abnormal for a Biju. Wait, was that how you knew that KY Kurama was really gone? He asked as carefully as he could. Saiken nodded sadly. Yes. He didn't use it often these days, none of us do. But we could tell when he was just ignoring us and suddenly he just wasn't there, he explained, having a moment of silence for his brother. But Shukaku told us all about your fight. If that had been a normal Hokage, you would have dealt with it a lot faster. Still, we never knew Hokage could be made and controlled like that. Some humans were able to direct them, but not puppet them like yours was. Naruto crossed his arms in thought. What I don't get is why someone did that at all. I mean, they had to be going after me, right? If not, they could have gone after any country. This is true. I don't think it was a coincidence, Saiken agreed. Nephew, I heard you had to fight someone or something else. Naruto frowned. You know about the Akatsuki, right? Somewhat, Saiken answered, giving him a wary look. You found them. Their leader, a guy that calls himself Pain, Naruto answered, looking down. Bastard nearly sealed me away. Alone. He was that powerful. Saiken asked in concern. The number of humans that could rival a Biju was far and few in between. Yeah, he had a lot of weird powers, like having multiple bodies and being able to revive them, Naruto explained. The main issues were these jutsus that I think controlled gravity. He nearly sealed me inside a giant ball of earth he made. It was like being trapped in a moon. Saiken interrupted sharply, leaning forward. Naruto blinked and saw the uneasy body language on Saiken's form. Yeah, a small moon. Do you know something about this? Nephew, his eyes, were they a gray or purple color with a lot of rings? Saiken predicted. Naruto's wide eyes were confirmation enough. To think, someone with his eyes would emerge, and be trying to capture us, Saiken said in an almost sorrowful tone. Naruto repeated prompting. Saiken sighed. The world knows him as a legend now, the sage of six paths. Never heard of him, Naruto admitted readily. But I was kind of a dumbass in school, so that might just be me. Saiken barely even seemed to acknowledge that. Time might have forgotten him by now. Most considered him the founder of the shinobi, the first to master chakra into various jutsu. But the Biju knew him by a different name. Naruto stared intently, curiously. His name was Hagoromo, but we called him father. Naruto nearly fell over at that. Your father. Saiken nodded slowly. He created us, not long after he created the moon. The moon? Are you serious? Was this guy a god or something? Naruto couldn't help exclaiming. Saiken seemed to smile a bit at that. Some called him that, but our father, Hagoromo, was hard to explain, by and large. I will tell you the family story one day, nephew, but it would take too long right now. Right, just got to try and wrap my head around the whole, father of the Biju, thing, Naruto said, rubbing his eyes. You said he had multiple bodies. Like clone jutsu? Saiken asked curiously. No, like he was one person with many real bodies. Each one looked like a different person and had a different power. But they all had the same eyes and orange hair, Naruto explained before thinking. And a lot of piercings, for some reason. Father didn't have that power, but maybe he just never showed us, Saiken remarked. Well, Naruto paused. I was fighting 6 of them, but I could sense a 7th nearby. I thought it might be for a sneak attack, but in hindsight, I'm pretty sure that might have been his true body. Shukaku told me about his vessel's brother having a knack for puppet jutsus. Perhaps this is similar but with bodies. Great. I found an entirely different kind of undead asshole than the one I was looking for, Naruto remarked dryly. So, it's not going to be a problem for anybody if I end up having to kill him, right? Since he's a descendant of your dad. Saiken shook his head. Unlikely. I would have liked to have met someone like him in better circumstances, but such is the world sometimes. Still, back to my original thought, could the Akatsuki and their leader be connected to the Hokage? Tire you out and weaken you? I've been wondering that too. That guy did want to kill me or seal me, Naruto agreed with an unconvinced look. But whoever controlled the Hokage could bring in the cloud cover to summon it wherever. Why wouldn't this pain guy have done that? The Hokage would have given him an edge if he controlled it, or controlled someone that did. Saiken nodded. You are right. Are you sure he's the leader? I mean, he said he was. Naruto answered. Humans can say a lot of things they don't mean, nephew. You know that too, Saiken said softly. Naruto silently conceded that inside. We're getting nowhere with that. Moving on. Naruto prompted. Yes, what's this I heard about a giant flaming bird? Saiken asked, very confused and curious. Naruto cringed. Right. So, I got a goose stuck up my nose. End of chapter. Well, Sakura is on the all-female mission as they map out Naruto's paths, and the expected antics happen from having Anko and Ino around to team up against Hinata and Sakura. Naruto meanwhile is training some, getting along with his current watcher, dealing with the octopus, and had a long talk with his self-appointed uncle Saiken. Had a lot of fun with that talk. Saiken is fun, and this is a lot of interesting information for them to discuss their musing on who might be behind the Hokage and why. Naruto finding out about the Biju having a father that created the moon, and now he has to tell Saiken about his nose goose that turned into a phoenix. A goose flew up your nose, and helped you later by turning into a phoenix, Saiken summarized slowly as Naruto stood there awkwardly. Yeah, that sounds perfectly normal. Naruto was taken aback by that. It is. Really. Animals that absorb Biju chakra can end up adapting to it. That happened a lot with us, Saiken answered with a chuckle. Naruto squinted his eyes in suspicion. Wait. Are you where the slug summons come from? Saiken nodded his head proudly. I was so happy when I heard about that Tsunade woman. I hadn't heard about those little neonates in a long time before that, he explained giddily. Sometimes it makes them giant, sometimes it just lets them generate chakra to perform jutsu of their own. It doesn't always make them smarter though, but the feral ones usually get killed off. Naruto scratched his head. That makes a lot of sense, really. So, giant animals like the summons weren't a thing before you and the other Biju? Yes and no. There were some. If I remember it right, the toads were one of the few that began evolving first, back before my father made us Biju, Saiken explained thoughtfully. But a lot more of them started showing up after us. Naruto was still trying to wrap his head around that. Someone made the Biju. And they called him father, rather affectionately. There was a long story there Naruto would have to ask about at some point. His ears twitched as he looked up past the walls of the bubble into the surface. Sorry, but I have to run, Saiken. Is everything alright? Saiken asked curiously. Yeah, but you better scram. Thanks for the talk, Naruto advised as he left the air pocket and began to return to the beach. He surfaced with a flare of chakra, his fur drying in an instant as he looked upon the situation. There was a group of Anbu who were on the beach, one with a drawn katana standing dangerously close to the Chunin scent to watch on Naruto. Most importantly, these were not Konoha Anbu. No, that was definitely the symbol for Kiri. Naturally, every one of them tensed at his arrival, as he loomed over them ominously. Well, I certainly wasn't expecting guests, Naruto remarked evenly. Is there a reason I shouldn't tail flick you all across the water? The leader had a mask with a green mark on either side, the Kiri symbol between them. I am Kappa, the leader of this hunter team. We have reason to believe a rogue ninja from our land is in this area. Well, your reason is wrong, Naruto said, feigning a yawn, feeling the many eyes lingering on his teeth. Now please get the hell off my beach so I can take a nap in peace. And stop with my shipwreck collection, Naruto said, head snapping to an Anbu on one of the broken boats, who stumbled backward in surprise. We will leave when we have finished our search, Kappa said neutrally. Naruto lowered his head down to their level, and he could see many of them shaking as his nose was now right in front of Kappa. You think my ears are for show? That my nose is a decoration? He asked in annoyance. I know everything going on at this beach. I sense the ones you had in the water before I rose up, you all on this beach, and even the rest of you hiding in the trees over there. To emphasize his point, Naruto's tail snapped down, just missing where several of the Anbu were hiding. Kappa steeled his nerves and did not budge. So if we were to find anyone here, you are knowingly harboring them. Naruto snorted, and the sudden gust made the Anbu leader step back, nearly falling over. You can go home yourself or you can be sent back. Your choice. Bold beast. Naruto's eyes snapped right to the Anbu in question, a mask that looked like a baboon's face. This one did fall over at the sudden attention. I'll remember you, Naruto remarked as he raised his head back up. Well, I tried to play nice. You all mind taking it from here? The Kiri ninja tense as several more Anbu appeared in the area. These ones decided were from Konoha, having a few Kiri Anbu already in custody. Kappa felt a sword against his neck and looked to see an Anbu with a cat mask that had green and red markings. Hello, I'm Tenzo, he greeted in a false friendly tone. I'm the leader of the Anbu team sent to guard him. He paused to nod to Naruto, in case someone had the foolish idea to try and seal him while he is still recovering from his battle with the Hokage. And what do you know, several of your members have sealing preparations on their person. Kappa clicked his tongue. We're not here for your biju. Then you shouldn't have come to his beach, Tenzo advised helpfully. For the record, he does in fact own this beach, by decree of the daimyo of Fire Country. You threatened to make this incident not just between our villages but our entire countries. Kappa asked in a dark tone. Has having a biju aiding you made Konoha this arrogant? Did having no biju at all make Kiri this desperate? Tenzo retorted in kind. Now, how would you like to leave this beach? Kappa held his gaze for a moment. But as Naruto let his chakra flow more freely, the air grew heavy on the Kiri ninja's shoulders, daring them to make this something he had to deal with himself. Our quarry isn't here, Kappa said loudly. Let us leave. With that, the Kiri Anbu stepped away from their Konoha counterparts, the Konoha ninjas releasing the restrained ones. They steadily put distance between them as they began to retreat before turning to leave quickly. Kappa. The leader stopped in mid-run, looking back to see the golden Kyuubi staring directly at him with a look that seemed cold and even to him. Be careful where you swim. With that ominous warning in the air, the Kiri Anbu all left the area. Be careful where you swim, Tenzo repeated. Was that a threat or a warning? Both, Naruto answered before looking at the Chunin sent to watch him, who had visibly relaxed now that the situation was resolved. You okay? Yeah, I'm glad I was warned about the Anbu guarding the area or I might have gotten myself killed before you showed up, he remarked in relief. That was the boldest anyone has ever been in coming here, Tenzo remarked. Spies and scouts, yes, but a whole team of Anbu in the open. They're looking for the slug Biju, Naruto remarked with a yawn. How do you know that? Tenzo asked curiously. Naruto shrugged and lied with another truth. I heard one of them muttering about it in the trees. Though, why aren't they looking for the turtle? Didn't you say they lost both of them? The Sanbi hasn't reformed yet after its last host was killed, Tenzo explained with a hum. So, Kiri believes the Ryokobi is in the area. I'll have to inform Lady Tsunade. Thanks for helping take care of all of this, Naruto said, waving to the Anbu in general. Thank you for pointing out where the rest of them were, Tenzo returned. Naruto hummed as he looked off to where the Kiri Anbu had left while the Konoha Anbu returned to their posts. Tsunade hadn't sent those Anbu because she was overly worried about him being sealed, the battle with the Hokage hadn't really weakened him. But they were trying to avoid an international incident. And the nations were getting bolder now. Naruto didn't know a lot about politics, but he knew one thing. Bad things, like war, often start with someone trying something stupid and dragging a lot of people into it. Still, there wasn't anything to do about it right now. So, anyone want to try whale meat? Meanwhile, normally, instant communication across long distances was not something possible, except with very specific justice. Danzo was privy to one of them. A special set of scrolls. When one was written on, the writing was copied on the other. Unfortunately, Danzo had only found this worked reliably with one of his young root agents who specialized in ink-based jutsu. Anyone else and the chance of failing rose greatly, especially over a certain distance. So, Kiri intruded into the Kyuubi's grounds with the excuse of searching for their own missing Jinchuriki. Danzo mused to himself. That would not do. The Mist Village no doubt felt a bit of confidence, knowing there was an ocean between them and the mainland. A non-factor once Naruto learned to water walk again, which he steadily was, but having no Biju at all likely made them desperate enough to pry where they should not. Still, Danzo was uncertain if he should become involved yet. He already had enough to look into. They were still combing for any clues regarding the Hokage's creation or controller, but more than that. Naruto had influenced the Fire Daimyo to give aid to the Hidden Rain. Honestly, not a prospect Danzo disagreed with, given everything. The leader of the Akatsuki was clearly formidable, one of the few who might be able to subdue a Biju long enough to seal them, all on his own. And letting that group grow stronger would be a mistake. Still, Hanzo himself was an element to not underestimate. In any case, Danzo intended to either bleed the Akatsuki and Rain or push them out entirely. Preferably the first, he'd rather not give Hanzo a chance to get too powerful either. Danzo scoffed at the memory of Hanzo. Time barely touches some of us, he remarked. The leader of Rain was only a bit younger than himself and the late Sarutobi. But Hanzo's power had only barely waned from all reports. He was almost jealous in a way. He'd keep an eye on Kiri, but he'd leave it in the hands of the Hokage for now. He wrote back to his agent, instructing him to return to observing for now and to remain hidden. Said agent was regularly posted near the Kyuubi's beach to keep an eye on Naruto. Something the Golden Biju was well aware of, Danzo was certain. He also knew that Naruto had made no effort to expose or remove the agent. Putting the Biju under his full control was not a possibility Danzo had ruled out, nor was sealing him. But the state of things spoke volumes, how powerful it was to have a free Biju loyal to a village. That was a boon for the village, Danzo couldn't deny. How long have you been expecting this meeting of ours? When did you think I wasn't expecting it? That exchange echoed in his mind. Just how much did that boy really know now? What could one learn if they could hear everything in the village? Even with seals and barriers crafted to keep sound from escaping, there would always be words slipped and things hinted at. And with a Biju who could hear everything and had nothing to do but listen and contemplate what he overheard. To think, those ears are almost more terrifying than his tails, Danzo remarked to himself with a scoff. Meanwhile, this is the village. Hinata's statement broke the silence of the night as the ninja team looked at the recent destruction. There were a lot of buildings damaged on this side of the village, and the entire countryside outside this gate was upturned and devastated. This must have been where Naruto first fought it, Sakura said, looking at a wall that had a caved-in section. Honestly, for a giant monster fight, I think this place is in good condition, Ino remarked in surprise. Blondie, you're right, but don't say that to the locals, Anko recommended, glancing at the setting sun. We better find an inn for the night. Hey, what are you doing here? A voice called out, a guard approaching them with a spear. Didn't we tell you lot to? He stopped as more than one of the kunoichi put a hand on their ninja pouch. Wait, are you from Konoha? He asked in surprise, squinting at their headbands. That we are. Is there a problem? Anko asked with a sickly sweet smile. No, my apologies. I thought you were someone else, he answered, cocking his helmeted head at them. Though, what are ninjas doing here now? We're mapping out the, footpaths caused by the Kyuubi. For the Landscaping Corp, Sakura informed. That's real. I thought that was some ninja joke, the guard said in surprise. If you're looking for an inn, you'll need to head near the village center. All the ones in this area are taken up. Thank you for the information, Hinata said with a nod of her head. May I ask who or what you thought we were at first? Anko asked neutrally. If I may be frank, ma'am, I thought you might be some prostitutes, the guard explained honestly. What? Ino asked in offense until Anko put a hand on her shoulder. Really? Anko questioned. And why is that on your radar? The man motioned to the destruction around them. Workers have been coming for the reconstruction and repairs. Naturally, other people came hoping for more business, salesmen, street entertainers, and whores. There's a certain group of whores who have a habit of trying to loot the buildings while they're empty, the guard explained. Have a good night. Sakura frowned in understanding. Much like a body repairing a wound, repairing a town from this much damage involved a lot of people and activity. And with those people came opportunists that preyed on tragedy. Say, the Kyuubi comes to your village a lot, right? The guard asked awkwardly. Please send him our thanks. If not for him, well, all of us would be undead minions of that monster. We'll definitely pass that along, Hinata promised with a smile. With that, they left for the undamaged areas of the village, in hopes of finding a place to stay. I'm a little annoyed that man thought we were whores, Ino said with a scuff. Don't be. He's just doing his job, the same as us. Even if whores weren't some of the main thieves, we're still suspicious coming through the destroyed end of town, Anko remarked, waving her off before smirking. Besides, the whore comment was clearly aimed at me, and I want people making that mistake sometimes. You do? Sakura asked in surprise as Anko grinned. You've killed people who let you get too close, thinking they were getting lucky, haven't you? You are the smart one, Anko mock praised. I'm telling you, I had it. They slowed their walk as they heard a man ranting in some kind of food bar. Sure you did, you drunk, another customer said dismissively. It was a strand of that golden fur. Bright as the sun, and it vanished in my hand. I could have made a fortune on it. The man ranted, pounding his fist on the table. Is it a little way? Said Goose quickly regained his composure and bowed his head as he hovered. It is a pleasure to make your acquaintance, Lord Saiken. I am Sokyoku, as my lord said. Aren't you just the most polite goose that ever spoke? Saiken cooed playfully. Sokyoku preened a bit at the praise. It's amazing you were evolved by my nephew here, hehe, Saiken said playfully. Naruto, how is it this good bird has more manners than you? Sokyoku went silent at that, not wanting to insult his lord or try to offend his lord's uncle on their first meeting. Wait, I was just teasing. Saiken said with a laugh, two of his tails reaching out to tug Naruto back at the shoulder. I'd prefer you didn't leave without me, my lord. I have no issue dying to take on my greater form, but I would rather not experience death by drowning, Sokyoku requested imploringly. Don't worry, I'm sure Saiken could give you a bubble to get you to the surface, Naruto waved off as he turned back. Wait, what is this about you dying? Saiken questioned curiously. Yeah, he kind of dies, and gets reborn every time he turns into his giant flaming bird form, Naruto explained. Oh, Saiken suddenly became very excited. It's been a long time since I saw a new one like this. New what, Lord Saiken? Sokyoku questioned curiously. Well, I don't know if you really die or not, but I do know that some creatures that evolved from being around us could take on forms of pure elemental chakra. So, you are transforming from your flesh and blood form to something closer to us, Biju, Saiken explained excitedly. It's funny, this usually happens with Matabi's chakra. Fascinating. I knew I was blessed by my lord's powers, but I did not know I was closer to your kind than the average summon. Sokyoku said with pride. Saiken tilted his head in thought. You know, nephew, when you told me about him, I wondered if he was one, but I figured he just had a lot of chakra and used it like a giant chakra cloak to take on a larger appearance. Chakra cloak, Naruto repeated in confusion. Saiken nodded repeatedly. Some of the Jinchuriki that have the Biju with more tails. When the first tail is unleashed, the chakra forms a cloak around the body. It's like a midway for containers when they are in the process of taking on the form of a Biju. Ah, I experienced that once, Naruto said, glancing away as he remembered his last battle as a human, which resulted in this. Sensing Naruto's somber mood, Saiken quickly changed the subject. I'm sure introducing us wasn't the only thing you wanted, nephew. Naruto nodded and brought his mind to the present. Right. Have you noticed anything going on east of here? Or, have you been causing anything? I don't think so. Why? Saiken asked in confusion. Some Kiri Anbu showed up on my beach looking for you, Naruto explained. And a lot of them washed up dead. Oh, them, Saiken said in remembrance. That wasn't me. I may have drowned one or two survivors that spotted me, but something else fought them. Naruto hummed, rubbing his chin. That might have been the octopus, but there is also a sea monster in the land of sea. I usually avoid the land of sea. There is some very bad chakra around there, Saiken answered. I try to avoid being spotted, so fighting sea monsters close to villages and ports isn't a good idea. Bad chakra, Sokyoku repeated slowly. My lord, probably related to Orochimaru. If so, that explains why the octopus was so interested in Anko, Naruto mused to himself. Who? Saiken questioned. No one important. Naruto waved off, growing quiet and uneasy. Naruto. Saiken spoke up in concern, feeling the change in the mood. Sorry, it's kind of stupid, Naruto said, his ears drooping a bit as he looked at the ground. I killed some bandits a little while ago. It was the first time I killed anyone. Saiken remained silent while Naruto didn't meet his gaze. I'm sure that doesn't sound like a big deal with you. And I don't regret it, they were less than animals, but. Naruto gritted his teeth. I knew how easy it would be, that I had to be careful, but actually doing it. Naruto stopped as he found himself enveloped by all 6 of Saiken's tails. It's okay, nephew, Saiken said in a soft, comforting tone. I understand. Naruto glanced at him, just a bit surprised. You do. Saiken nodded sagely. I'm sorry if I don't know what to say, it's just, it has been a long time since any of us killed someone for the first time. I can barely remember when we were that young. Naruto fell silent now, listening to the elder Biju. Nephew, I don't like killing. I'm just used to it. I have been since before we were all sealed. All of us have. That doesn't mean we like it, though, Saiken said solemnly. Naruto nodded. Kurama and Shukaku kind of gave the opposite impression. Saiken chuckled. Yeah, Kurama definitely did, and Shukaku still does. Compassion isn't a weakness, my lord, Sokyoku said wisely as he landed on Naruto's head. It is nobler, I think, to be willing to kill despite desiring not to, than it is to be unwilling to kill when it is needed. Naruto took a deep breath of relief. Thank you, both of you. I think I needed that. Sensing Naruto's somber mood, Saiken quickly changed the subject. I'm sure introducing us wasn't the only thing you wanted, nephew. Naruto nodded and brought his mind to the present. Right. Have you noticed anything going on east of here? Or, have you been causing anything? I don't think so. Why? Saiken asked in confusion. Some Kiri Anbu showed up on my beach looking for you, Naruto explained. And a lot of them washed up dead. Oh, them, Saiken said in remembrance. That wasn't me. I may have drowned one or two survivors that spotted me, but something else fought them. Naruto hummed, rubbing his chin. That might have been the octopus, but there is also a sea monster in the land of sea. I usually avoid the land of sea. There is some very bad chakra around there, Saiken answered. I try to avoid being spotted, so fighting sea monsters close to villages and ports isn't a good idea. Bad chakra, Sokyoku repeated slowly. My lord, Probably related to Orochimaru. If so, that explains why the octopus was so interested in Anko, Naruto mused to himself. Who? Saiken questioned. No one important. Naruto waved off, growing quiet and uneasy. Naruto. Saiken spoke up in concern, feeling the change in the mood. Sorry. It's kind of stupid, Naruto said, his ears drooping a bit as he looked at the ground. I killed some bandits a little while ago. It was the first time I killed anyone. Saiken remained silent while Naruto didn't meet his gaze. I'm sure that doesn't sound like a big deal with you. And I don't regret it, they were less than animals, but. Naruto gritted his teeth. I knew how easy it would be, that I had to be careful, but actually doing it. Naruto stopped as he found himself enveloped by all 6 of Saiken's tails. It's okay, nephew, Saiken said in a soft, comforting tone. I understand. Naruto glanced at him, just a bit surprised. You do. Saiken nodded sagely. I'm sorry if I don't know what to say, it's just, it has been a long time since any of us killed someone for the first time. I can barely remember when we were that young. Naruto fell silent now, listening to the elder Biju. Nephew. I don't like killing. I'm just used to it. I have been since before we were all sealed. All of us have. That doesn't mean we like it, though, Saiken said solemnly. Naruto nodded. Kurama and Shukaku kind of gave the opposite impression. Saiken chuckled. Yeah, Kurama definitely did, and Shukaku still does. Compassion isn't a weakness, my lord, Sokyoku said wisely as he landed on Naruto's head. It is nobler, I think, to be willing to kill despite desiring not to, than it is to be unwilling to kill when it is needed. Naruto took a deep breath of relief. Thank you, both of you. I think I needed that. Sensing Naruto's somber mood, Saiken quickly changed the subject. I'm sure introducing us wasn't the only thing you wanted, nephew. Naruto nodded and brought his mind to the present. Right. Have you noticed anything going on east of here? Or, have you been causing anything? I don't think so. Why? Saiken asked in confusion. Some Kiri Anbu showed up on my beach looking for you, Naruto explained. And a lot of them washed up dead. Oh, them, Saiken said in remembrance. That wasn't me. I may have drowned 1 or 2 survivors that spotted me, but something else fought them. Naruto hummed, rubbing his chin. That might have been the octopus, but there is also a sea monster in the land of sea. I usually avoid the land of sea. There is some very bad chakra around there, Saiken answered. I try to avoid being spotted, so fighting sea monsters close to villages and ports isn't a good idea. Bad chakra, Sokyoku repeated slowly. My lord, probably related to Orochimaru. If so, that explains why the octopus was so interested in Anko, Naruto mused to himself. Who? Saiken questioned. No one important. Naruto waved off, growing quiet and uneasy. Naruto. Saiken spoke up in concern, feeling the change in the mood. Sorry. It's kind of stupid, Naruto said, his ears drooping a bit as he looked at the ground. I killed some bandits a little while ago. It was the first time I killed anyone. Saiken remained silent while Naruto didn't meet his gaze. I'm sure that doesn't sound like a big deal with you. And I don't regret it, they were less than animals, but. Naruto gritted his teeth. I knew how easy it would be, that I had to be careful, but actually doing it. Naruto stopped as he found himself enveloped by all 6 of Saiken's tails. It's okay, nephew, Saiken said in a soft, comforting tone. I understand. Naruto glanced at him, just a bit surprised. You do. Saiken nodded sagely. I'm sorry if I don't know what to say, it's just, it has been a long time since any of us killed someone for the first time. I can barely remember when we were that young. Naruto fell silent now, listening to the elder Biju. Nephew. I don't like killing. I'm just used to it. I have been since before we were all sealed. All of us have. That doesn't mean we like it, though, Saiken said solemnly. Naruto nodded. Kurama and Shukaku kind of gave the opposite impression. Saiken chuckled. Yeah, Kurama definitely did, and Shukaku still does. Compassion isn't a weakness, my lord, Sokyoku said wisely as he landed on Naruto's head. It is nobler, I think, to be willing to kill despite desiring not to, than it is to be unwilling to kill when it is needed. Naruto took a deep breath of relief. Thank you, both of you. I think I needed that. The trio of creatures stood there in their bubble at the bottom of the sea, enjoying their silent company. Just be careful, nephew. I'm sure they're trying to figure out a way to spy on you without noticing, Saiken advised. Why do you think I never told anyone how far I can see or hear? Naruto remarked with a smirk. By the time most try to hide themselves, I've already noticed them. Not to mention, Saiken tilted his head. Yes. Look, I don't know how right this is, but I think I can tell how people are feeling. Naruto answered uncertainly. Saiken grew silent as Sokyoku spoke up. How do you mean, my lord? Do you mean you can detect sickness? No, no like that, Naruto said with a headshake. I can tell when people are sad, angry, and other things. Usually. Negative emotions, Saiken finished. Naruto blinked. I guess so. It was hard to tell, but Saiken smiled. That was Kurama's ability. Naruto inhaled in surprise. He could sense negative emotions, yes. It was part of his problems with humans, Saiken said with a sigh. He could only sense the worst in them. The demon of hatred, he called himself sometimes. Naruto remained quiet at that, contemplating it. Why only negative emotions? Saiken shrugged. Who knows? It was just how it turned out. I can no more explain that than explain why Kokuo is a dolphin horse. Quote. I'm sorry, Lord Saiken, did you say a dolphin horse? Sokyoku asked slowly. What? Like a seahorse? Naruto asked in bewilderment. No, his body is like a horse, but his head is like a dolphin. Saiken explained with a chuckle. That is very strange to imagine, Sokyoku remarked in consideration. Have you even seen a dolphin yet? Saiken questioned curiously. Not since I was uplifted, but I do recall them from my days as a simple goose. Rather unpleasant creatures in my experience, no offense to your brother, Lord Saiken, Sokyoku said. Believe me, he would not take offense, Saiken said with a chuckle. Quote. Nephew. You alright? You're being quiet. Do you need another hug? Naruto had a very thoughtful look on his face as he held up his hands, clenching his fingers. Quote. Wait, am I kind of half human? Quote. Huh? Saiken questioned. I got human hands here for some reason. Naruto pointed out, waving one of his hands up and down. Am I actually a giant fox-human hybrid? No, some of us just have human hands. He never said so, but we're pretty sure our father tried to give us human forms when he made us, Saiken explained. Father? Sokyoku asked curiously. The Sage of Six Paths. Some legendary guy who made the Biju. And the moon, Naruto explained. Quote. The moon, Sokyoku repeated with comically wide eyes, his beak falling open as Saiken laughed. Speaking of that, Saiken, do you know anything about the people of the moon, or something like that? Naruto asked curiously. Quote. Are you talking about Uncle Hamura and his descendants? Saiken asked in surprise. Naruto stared. Quote. Uncle. Yes. Father's brother. He and his family went live on the moon, Saiken explained, looking very curious and excited. Wait. Have you heard of them? Are they still around? No. One of my friends found a book mentioning them in the shipwrecks in. Naruto suddenly trailed off as Saiken's words fully registered. What do you mean they lived on the moon? People live on the moon. Since when? Since always. Saiken answered with a head tilt. Naruto could only stare. Quote. Lord Saiken, I believe you need to give a very detailed family history lesson to my lord in the future, Sokyoku said as he tried to process what had been said. 1. I would not object to attending as well. Saiken just laughed at their expense. Meanwhile, alright, it's time we get back to work, Anko mused as she looked over the map as they walked. Now, thanks to Pinky, we know that we were about at the end of the trail we were on. I'm glad someone thought to use Foxy as a vantage point before absconding to the beach. I'd be more grateful for the praise if I weren't unsure if you even remember my name, Sakura remarked with a deadpan expression. The point is, we're pretty well done, Anko summarized. We just got to double check a few spots for any we missed along the way back, and we'll be home free. Anko shook her head. That's all the note said. We'll have to head back to the village to get more information. Then there isn't any time to wait, Sakura said firmly as she began to walk north again. Sakura? Hinata asked in surprise. Naruto will find out soon. I'm surprised he didn't hear us already, Sakura answered over her shoulder. And he shouldn't have to catch him a second time. Sakura looked forward, only to stop in shock as Anko appeared in front of her. Pinky, I know he's your old teammate, but this is out of your league, Anko said bluntly, poking her in the head to Sakura's frustration. I've seen the Valley of the End, what those two did to it. Even discounting how much damage Naruto must have done when he first transformed, that was the kind of fight even most Jonin might die in. If that brat has as little sentimentality about him as I've heard, he'd probably gut you like a fish. Sakura glared at the snake mistress impotently, knowing she was right. Hinata spoke up carefully as she glanced between the two. From what I hear, Sasuke gained power from a curse seal from Orochimaru. Wasn't it sealed? It was, Anko said with a sigh. But even if Orochimaru had nothing to do with this, it's entirely possible Sasuke will find someone who can break the seal. Or, rather, someone will find him in all likelihood. I don't think Orochimaru is involved, Sakura said thoughtfully. Anko raised an eyebrow at the rather bold assumption. What makes you think that, Sakura? Ino asked with a raised eyebrow. Naruto, Sakura answered, glancing south. Orochimaru was watching Sasuke during the Chunin exam, maybe before. So he was watching Naruto too. I doubt someone like him would ignore the fact that Naruto might go after Sasuke and him, even in another country. That is actually a good point, Anko admitted reluctantly. Her ex-teacher was a lot of things, but he wasn't stupid. While he underestimated people sometimes, he was also an excellent manipulator. He understood how people thought and behaved, so he definitely wouldn't ignore the Biju factor in this equation. I have to ask, since we're just assuming he had help, but what are the odds he broke out on his own? Ino asked with a hand on her hip. Hard to say. I mean, I once broke out, but barely, Anko answered, rubbing her chin. You were in the ninja prison, sensei? Hinata asked, all of them looking at Anko strangely. Yes, but no, it's a mission to test their security. Disguise yourself as a prisoner, try to bust out, Anko answered dismissively. But there was that issue with Mizuki breaking out, so I have no idea what state the place is in. In short, Pinky was right, we should get going. You really think Naruto will go after Sasuke if he's not caught? Hinata asked in concern. Sasuke killed him, so. Yeah, I don't think Naruto will be able to just ignore him being out and free, Sakura answered with a sigh. Hinata, you almost sound worried for Sasuke. Ino asked in bewilderment. Oh, no, it's Naruto. I'm worried he might cause trouble for himself, Hinata said with a sigh. Yeah, me too, Sakura agreed as she looked down. Ino shook her head. I'm now very glad we took that day at the beach. It seems like it is one thing after another around here. Meanwhile, so, dear Sasuke is out and about, Orochimaru mused whimsically as he read the news intercepted from a Konoha messenger bird. Tell me, Kabuto, do you know anything about this? He asked from his chair. My lord, if I were trying to free him, you'd be the first to know, Kabuto denied. I thought not, but I didn't want to rule out you being proactive, Orochimaru remarked in what might be teasing. I wonder if our spies will be able to gather just how the boy managed this. My lord, should we attempt to intercept Sasuke before Konoha captures him? Kabuto suggested. You assume Sasuke would be foolish enough to head here directly, Orochimaru said idly. Konoha will be guarding the border, and he will know this. He will travel another route here if he still seeks my training. A shame I have to reconsider my offer now. Reconsider? Kabuto repeated in shock. I don't understand. Why would you want to turn him away? Kabuto, do you insult a noble to appease a mere merchant? Orochimaru asked with a chuckle. If I take that boy in, Naruto will come. To kill or to take him back, and I would not rule out him making an attempt on my life. And I doubt he will be so lenient with my presence after such an encounter. The Sharingan is ever tempting, but less so than what I can learn from Naruto and his unique existence. So even if Sasuke were to make it here, you would turn him away? Kabuto asked skeptically. Perhaps I will, perhaps I won't. We'll just have to wait and see how events play out, Orochimaru said with a smirk. But if I do, I will likely take a souvenir from my would-be pupil, before handing him over to Naruto. Kabuto remained silent at that. How strange to think about, that foolish boy from the exams now held the fascination and attention of the entire ninja world. Mighty ninjas like Orochimaru scrambled to get a sample, a piece of the human-turned Biju. Nobles foolishly wanted to replicate the process without understanding the implications. He wondered how long until someone actually tried to seal the golden kitsune. His mind flashed back to that day outside Shukuba, when Naruto rammed a Rasengan into Kabuto's stomach. Not soon enough in his own opinion. End of chapter. Well, Naruto and Sokyoku had an interesting conversation with Saiken. From heavy feelings about his first kills to interesting topics about Sokyoku's nature and Naruto's negative emotion sense, all the way to, WTF do you mean people live on the moon? It was a treat to write that exchange, really. Meanwhile, Sasuke somehow escaped prison, and Sakura is both angry about that yet also worried Naruto might go after him. But even though Sasuke is on the run, Orochimaru himself is no tempted to turn him away. Again, Sharingan is great, but Biju Great Immortality is more tempting for him. Naruto knew something was wrong the moment he and Sokyoku returned to the beach. Nothing dangerous, but there was something odd about the Chunin watching him. Hey, he called up to the perch, drawing said ninja's attention. Anything happen while I was gone? No, nothing at all, the Chunin said with an uneasy smile. Naruto looked unconvinced. I may not have your hearing, my lord, Sokyoku remarked. But I take it that your watcher is a poor liar. Naruto didn't answer as his ears rose. The Chunin groaned, knowing there was no hiding this. Okay, I'll talk. Just, please don't do anything rash, he requested. Naruto sat on his haunches, giving the Chunin an expectant look. He hesitated another few seconds before answering. We don't have any details yet, but Sasuke Uchiha escaped. All at once, the air grew heavy, the leaves and sand swirling as Naruto's chakra swirled around aggressively and chaotically. The bastard got out, huh? Naruto muttered darkly. His ears rose and eyes closed, his senses stretching across the land. Then his eyes opened with a start. My lord, Sokyoku questioned. You, okay? The Chunin called down carefully. Yeah, just something unexpected, Naruto said with a head shake. I can't sense him from here. Bastard is probably still trying to get to Orochimaru. The Chunin remained tense. You can relax. I might have to pay Orochimaru a visit, but not today, Naruto said with a frown. I'll let Konoha deal with this for now, unless he's stupid enough to come close enough for me to sense him. The Chunin sighed in relief. What? Did you think I was going to go tear up the countryside again to look for him? Naruto asked flatly. Maybe. The Chunin answered with a head tilt. Naruto grunted. My lord, would you like me to go search for this traitor? Sokyoku offered. Not yet, No, head east and see if you can find anything weird over there, Naruto remarked. As you will, Sokyoku said with a bow of the head, flying off. East. The Chunin called down questioningly. Supposedly, there's a sea monster over there, and it might not be the octopus, Naruto mused before yawning. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm taking a nap. Time skip. The trip back to Konoha was a blur for Sakura. Ironically, her mind was consumed with thoughts of Sasuke, just as she had been before. But there was nothing affectionate or hopeful about her thoughts now. Up until this, she had tried to bury all her thoughts on Sasuke, to not dwell on him more than needed. She hoped, with him imprisoned, she could stay like that for a time and just try to make a new peace with how things were, while trying to find a new way forward. But of course, life often doesn't go the way one wishes. Sasuke was out, and Kami only knew how or where he was headed. Naruto no doubt already knew, and it was only a matter of time until he took matters into his own hands. Or tails, rather. Naturally, Sakura had run ahead of her team to get to the Hokage's office. Lady Hokage. Tsunade looked up from her paperwork, but was not the least bit surprised by the sudden and loud intrusion. Sakura Haruno, she greeted calmly. I take it you heard the news. Yes, and I'm sorry for barging in like this, but I was hoping you might be able to tell me more by the time I got here, Sakura admitted, rambling a bit. Tsunade took her in carefully, noticing the slightly worn-out expression on her face. Sasuke Uchiha escaped the prison with help. We're still unclear as to whom. However, you can rest easy. Kakashi Hatake was dispatched with a team to track him down, Tsunade informed. Sakura sighed in relief and dropped her head. Kakashi-sensei. Good. With any luck, Naruto won't feel the need to get involved. He might get his chance, Tsunade informed to Sakura's confusion. Sasuke's trail leads west. West. Sasuke said with a furrowed brow. Why would he? We're not sure of his intent, but if he heads south, I'm sure Naruto will move to intercept him, Tsunade mused. Maybe there is another destination or route in mind. Or he might not be aware that Naruto moved south. Sakura blinked as she thought about that. Right, if he thinks Naruto is still here, he'd probably head away to get out of Naruto's hearing range and cross another border. Tsunade nodded. In any case, if he heads south, I'm sure Naruto will intercept him. Sakura nodded in agreement. Still, thank you for humoring and answering me, Lady Hokage. No need. I've stood where you are in many ways, ignoring the biju on the beach, Tsunade quipped with a smirk, getting a chuckle from Sakura. Now, I trust you didn't just abandon your team and they're on the way. Yes. We completed our mission. We also had a run-in with some bandits, but I should probably let Anko-sensei explain that. Tsunade raised an eyebrow. Would that have anything to do with that sword on your back? Sakura blinked. I completely forgot I hadn't put this back in a scroll, she realized slowly. Kind of. It's a bit of a story. I found it in a shipwreck on Naruto's beach. Perhaps we should wait for your team, Tsunade said, glancing at the door with a scowl. Quote. If Anko took a dango detour, I'm demoting her to D-rank missions for a week. Sakura wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. Meanwhile, Kakashi narrowed his eye as he stood over what had been the burnt remains of a campsite. This place is a fake, Sume Inuzuka noted with a scowl. No one actually camped here. No, they didn't, Kakashi agreed. It had been set up to look like some traveler had just forgotten to put out their fire properly. But they did stop here, briefly, to make it look like they did, Kakashi said as he crouched down and brushed aside some ash to reveal some symbols barely visible on the scorched ground. They stopped to break the seals on the brat's chakra, Sume muttered. That explains how his scent got spread out. Must have made some clones to take different paths. Kakashi nodded silently. Even as they spoke, his summons and the nin dogs Sume brought were helping the others follow the scent. The question is, did he head north to brave Rain's civil war or south, further into the land of rivers? Sume mused. I'm more concerned about who is helping him, Kakashi said under his breath. From the prison to here, we found no scent or sighting of another party, but he clearly was aided. Even now, none of these trails show signs of another party. Sum hummed in agreement. Very few ninja were good enough to hide their trails from skilled jonin, especially ones versed in tracking. Could it be Itachi Uchiha? Maybe, Kakashi answered as he stood up and glanced north. If not him, then I imagine his associates are involved. Kakashi. Pakun yelled as the dog raced back to the clearing. Pakun, what did you find? Kakashi asked grimly. All the trails hit a dead end, except one heading south, Pakun explained quickly. You're positive? Kakashi stressed. Trust me, after last time, I know that brats trail anywhere, Pakun assured. Good, then lead the way, Kakashi instructed before he made a clone. I'll leave him behind to tell the others when they get back. Right, Sum said as she headed after Pakun with Kakashi. You think that brat is just taking a safe, long route to Orochimaru, or is this something else? Sasuke isn't one to take the safe route unless he's forced to, Kakashi answered back grimly. That said, I don't think he's stupid enough to intentionally go near Naruto now. You say that, Sum said dubiously, but left it otherwise unspoken. Kakashi didn't disagree. What was Sasuke trying to do? Or worse yet, what was he being led into? Meanwhile, this is as far as I take you. You're on your own. Sasuke frowned as he sat against the base of the tree, looking at his savior dubiously. Why? He asked pointedly. Have you ever considered that maybe you shouldn't try to find fault with a gift? Sasuke glared. Your cloak. He was wearing one too. Ah, right, you two did meet recently, the man said, tapping his masked head in thought. It's a favor, for your brother. What? Sasuke all but demanded, practically snarling as he lurched to his feet. Why would Ga? The man tilted his head as Sasuke fell to his knees, clutching his shoulder. The technique I used to unseal your chakra is not a pleasant one. You already pushed it when you made those clones like I asked. It'll be a week or two before you're at your full, and you shouldn't be too eager to try that curse seal either. Sasuke seethed at his own helplessness. Just tell me, why? Who even are you? Oh, me, I'm Toby. Just the most helpful member of the Akatsuki, he answered with an all too cheerful tone. As for why, well, you want to know a secret about the Mangekyo Sharingan. The Mangekyo, Sasuke repeated. How would you? It's powerful, yes, amazingly so. But it has a very nasty downside. Toby said, moving his hands animatedly. After using it so much, the user will eventually go blind. What? Sasuke said with a frown. That was, actually very useful if true. Yep. And then all those amazing powers are just gone. Toby confirmed with a nod. Boot. There are ways around it. Sasuke narrowed his eyes at the man. I take it that it's nothing easy or pleasant. It's kind of silly, really. Toby said, clapping his hands together. You have to steal someone else's Mangekyo Sharingan. Sasuke's eyes went wide at that. His mind truly went numb as he processed what that implied. See, silly. You'd think you'd just use up those eyes too, but apparently, you get an eternal Mangekyo with it, Toby answered with a shrug. And you can't exactly develop your own Mangekyo Sharingan in prison. So, that was why his brother left him alive. That's why he told him to hate him, to seek power, and gain his own Mangekyo. Just because he wanted to harvest his eyes one day. Sasuke gritted his teeth. Careful. You might chip a tooth doing that, Toby cautioned idly. Shut up. Sasuke yelled in frustration, slamming his fist on the ground. Hey now, that's not very nice. After all, Toby paused, his tone shifting into something more serious. I didn't have to tell you any of that. Sasuke paused, looking at him warily. Toby crouched down until he was at Sasuke's level. Look, your brother and I. The rest of us, we're not friends. We're just people who work together. And your brother, his usefulness has an expiration date. It's a few years at least, but still. So, either he gets your eyes, or we lose a loose end and gain a new potential recruit. Why would I work for you freaks? Sasuke asked with a scowl. As opposed to Orochimaru, Toby countered flatly. Sasuke didn't retort to that, knowing he had a point in refusing to acknowledge it. Just something to keep in mind. Besides, if you don't already know, our interests involve dealing with that blonde friend of yours, Toby reminded as he leaned in. And wouldn't you like a chance at outdoing that overgrown fox? Sasuke didn't answer. Toby leapt back to his feet. Just think about it, okay? He said, his tone chipper and pleasant again as he tossed out a map to Sasuke. Here you go. So you know where you are. Bye now. With that man vanished into a strange spiraling vortex that formed at his eye. Sasuke looked down at the map but didn't touch it as he studied it. Quote. How did we get all the way here? He asked dubiously. Regardless, he got to his feet and started walking. Meanwhile, the days had passed with a painful amount of uneventfulness for Sakura. No news came about Sasuke for a while, and when it did, it wasn't good. He got away. Huh. Shikamaru said with a sigh as he leaned against the railing. Troublesome. Naruto hasn't tried to go after him yet. So, that's good, Sakura said as she sat on the edge. I just don't get how he vanished like that, though. Shikamaru nodded absently. Tracking is bread and butter of the Inuzuka clan, and Kakashi-sensei is no slouch, but someone led them on a wild goose chase. Sakura snorted at the word goose, getting a look from Shikamaru. Nothing. But you're right. I don't know if I'm being kept out of the loop since, you know, I'm a genin still, but something does feel off about this. He didn't get to Orochimaru as far as we know, Shikamaru mused. But yeah, everyone is looking for him now. And I don't think he can avoid Naruto and everyone else forever. Sakura nodded absently. Quote. I hate to pry and all, but you really hate him now, huh? Shikamaru asked with a sympathetic frown. Sakura didn't look up, the shadow of her hair covering her eyes. I loved him, or the idea of him. And if Naruto had come back himself, maybe I still would have clung to that. But, I get it. Naruto died. It really kind of changes things a bit, almost losing one of our old classmates. He came back, but. Shikamaru trailed off as he looked down. He's still Naruto, but he's not the same. I feel like he's aged a few more years every time I see him. Sakura nodded slowly before looking up with a weak smile. Sorry, I made that kind of depressing. You're fine, Shikamaru waved off. So, any word on that new sword of yours? Is Ino still calling it a paddle sword? Sakura asked flatly. Her, among others. Both turned around and looked up to see Kakashi sitting on the roof. Kakashi-sensei. Both of them greeted with surprise. Yo. He greeted with a peace sign. Is there a reason we're meeting at Naruto's old apartment? Naruto asked Ino to look after his old plants, and I offered to do it today, Sakura reminded before glancing away. And, well, the landlord hasn't had the guts to clear out and rent the place to anyone. I'm not surprised, Kakashi said absently. Well, Sakura, I actually bring good news. That weapon you brought back from the beach. It's all yours. It is? Sakura asked, barely catching a scroll that Kakashi threw at her. Just like that, Sakura nodded absently. Quote. I sometimes wish I had paid him a visit, while he was still being held here. Just to confront him, or, she sighed as she stood up. I don't know. Kakashi remained silent as he looked up. Kakashi-sensei, can I ask you something? Sakura asked absently. Everyone has heard about how, when Naruto first became the Kyuubi, you just kind of, didn't react. You want to know how I handled it so well. A lot of people have asked that, Kakashi remarked. I've never admitted this before, but the real answer. I didn't. Huh. Sakura looked at him in surprise. I watched Naruto for a good few minutes when I first saw him like that, stunned and overwhelmed, Kakashi admitted, his eye to the sky with a distant look. I honestly thought it was just the old Kyuubi for a second, taking Naruto's color scheme as some kind of twisted irony from being trapped inside him. But I watched him set Sasuke down and just sit there in a daze. He looked so lost and upset. That was about the time it clicked that it might just be Naruto and something had gone very wrong with the seal. And Naruto being a Biju wasn't its own kind of surprise to work through. Sakura asked with a head tilt. Not really, Kakashi said, rubbing the back of his head. I just saw my student was very tired after completing a very emotional mission, and wanted to go home. So, that's what I did. I brought him home. Sakura stared for a moment. What? Kakashi asked, tilting his head. You really are the best sensei in some ways, Sakura said with a smile. I'm really not. I feel like I was definitely shoddy with you three, Kakashi said with an eye smile. But I appreciate the sentiment. That said, if you really want to learn how to use that sword, I can help you, Sakura asked with raised eyebrows. Sorry, it's just, you've never really seen me use a sword before. Kakashi finished knowingly. No, it's not my specialty. But I still have decent skill in it, so I can get you started. Sakura beamed. I'd like that, Kakashi-sensei. And, maybe you can teach me some jutsu that won't eat up half my chakra reserves. She asked sheepishly. Kakashi chuckled. I'll see if I can pull something out of my 1001 options. Meanwhile, Sokyoku flew as just an ordinary, not golden goose. At the bidding of his lord, he had been scouting the lands and seas to the east of where his lord dwelt. Of course, there was one problem. Sokyoku, despite all his intelligence, did not have a firm grasp of where this land of sea was supposed to be. Political geography was hardly something he had the chance to study yet. Lord Saiken said it was a set of 3 large islands past the tip of a peninsula, he said to himself as he flew onward. He had seen nothing unusual. Fishermen, a couple of shore settlements, some ships, and small islands. But nothing matched what he was looking for. Perhaps I should find a map to abscond with. I do hate to resort to thievery, though. He sighed, a habit he had learned from humans, no doubt. He deeply wished to bring his lord back some news to distract him from Sasuke Uchiha still being at large. How fortunate might I be to stumble upon that foolish traitor. Ah, I'd happily bring him to Lord Naruto, with a few new burns, Sokyoku said with a squawk of a laugh. He stopped his flight as his sharp eyes faintly saw something on the southern horizon, across the open sea. Smoke, he murmured to himself as he shifted his flight path. Now, what could be burning in the middle of the ocean? End of chapter. And there you are. Sasuke escaped and is on the loose for now, thanks to Tobi using Kamui to take him somewhere far away. Naruto hasn't gone hunting for him yet. As a distraction, he's looking into the sea monster issue, but Sokyoku might be very scared. He doesn't exactly know the lay of the land yet in terms of countries. Also some Kakashi and Sakura having some teacher-student bonding. Yay! Happy Halloween!